Hello, I'm Mike Bithell, and I made, this game, Thomas Was Alone. Thank you for buying a copy. That's very kind of you, unless you've pirated it, in which case, please go and buy a copy. It's in sales quite regularly, hopefully. It's weird speaking to you from the past. So, this is Thomas. He was named originally by the community. The game's name, Thomas Was Alone, was arrived upon by a friend of mine, who sarcastically suggested. So this is step one: side-to-side movement. If you're a platforming game fan, it should not present too much of a challenge to you. But here, it's really just about easing the player into the way the world works, seeing gravity for the first time, understanding how falling feels, and then actually kind of talking about that in the voiceover to kind of have a bit of fun with it. It's also introducing the idea of a narrated story, and it's introducing Thomas, so we hopefully kind of do quite a few things here at the same time. It also does the job of setting up Thomas as an inquisitive character. This is really important, and he becomes inquisitive. Jumping had to be right. It's kind of the main way you interact in this game, obviously. I did a lot of research. I got kind of obsessive about it. It took me, I was still fiddling with the jump physics, I think, about 3 weeks before I launched the game. So it's something that just got fiddled with and fiddled with and fiddled with. It had to feel right. And yeah, there's one problem here, actually, and we'll talk about problems on this. This is a challenging jump. So this is a jump where the player can fail at it. So there's a gap, but the whole point of this level is to introduce the idea of jump distance and the fact I played a lot of Uncharted before making this level, and it's kind of inspired by those kind of scripted moments in games. I didn't do as many in the game as I kind of expected to at the start. There's a few reasons for that, but I guess the main one was that once the players kind of gets the mechanics in a good enough way, I didn't want to completely kind of overwhelm them with stuff that wasn't as interactive. But here it's cool because it sets up failure for the first time. So this is a subtle one, but it's kind of important. And I know I'm talking a lot about game design introduction. This is by the way, this isn't like innovative in any way. This is Mario. This is every game you ever played. But I think it's kind of interesting to go through the steps. So here, this is a very specific skill. This is jumping up onto steps, but pressing jump and then moving once you've pressed jump. So here is the kind of, we're extrapolating on precision. It's essentially we've done it in the previous level. We've made you do it, and here we're kind of queuing up a few of those. So if you fail at one, you can actually force yourself to go back a couple of steps in the progress. This is kind of the first time we're challenging the player, which is important, but it's important as well that it's not overwhelming. It's still very early days. I haven't yet shown you the kind of the differentiating mechanic of Thomas. So it's again just kind of bringing players up to speed with stuff and starting to show them how a game would work in this space. Respawning to the game until about a month before release. It's a classic example of something that every playtest I ever did. So basically, if you died in the game previous to a month before it came out, lighting. It's a weird one. The lighting. I didn't have lighting at one stage. There wasn't light. Then it was sounding a bit biblical. But as it went on, I kind of added that in. Initially, I was doing them by hand for every level, and basically this procedural system kind of came out of laziness. I didn't want to do that anymore. And weirdly, as a side effect of that, it was cool, and the shadows moved and could be kind of related to placement of objects, placement of characters. And it was good. It's actually faked because the game was made in free Unity. I didn't have any shadows within the game kind of proper. So what I did was so this is the moving platform corridor. This was an attempt to bring in something that's going to become very important in a very short amount of time, the moving platforms. It's really hard to introduce moving platforms because moving platforms move, and that makes them challenging and makes them a kind of complex interaction. So what the corridor here allows me to do is introduce you to the idea that sometimes the ground moves, but in a way that doesn't actually kind of impact you too much and won't cause you, hopefully, to get too stressed out. People seem to like it. It's kind of a bouncy castle level. People tend to have fun as they move through it, which is quite cool. And yeah, it looks interesting, and hopefully it just kind of introduces the This is the most important level in the game. This is the point where I basically get to the point. And arguably I should have done it a little bit sooner. However, this is where it is, and that's fine. So this is the point where the player has to learn how to switch characters, which is kind of the basis of the entire thing, is this switching between the characters. This is also actually one of the first levels. This is almost identical to the version that was in the original Flash game. You have two characters. This was a weird little accident, this level, actually. There's on Thomas on the right there. As you move up, you're moving through trigger boxes. If you don't make games, trigger boxes are basically spaces you jump into or move into, and they cause something in the game to happen. So as you move up as Thomas, you're hitting these trigger boxes which cause the walls to come in. But as a really weird coincidence, I got one of the timings wrong, so that as you moved up, there's a certain point where it looks like you can jump somewhere, you jump to it, and the wall flies out and hits you in the face. It's kind of a funny moment. And I did it, and I thought it was funny, and it felt kind of organic. And I took it to, when I started showing the game to people, it happened to everyone. It's a weird thing that it seems to catch everyone out. Even though there's nothing forcing you into it, 90% of the time people get hit in the face. And most of the time they laugh. So I left it in, and I'm really happy with it, actually. It's one of those nice little coincidences that worked out really well. Steps. Everyone loved the steps. They didn't, actually. And it's probably my biggest design regret in the game is... Steps basically are kind of obstacles that you have to jump over by kind of piling up a few characters in order to get through. That's fine. The problem with steps is that you have to do that repeatedly, that you have to essentially solve the same puzzle over and over again in sequence. And there's just 2 or 3 too many times I do that in the whole game, and it's frustrating to players. Yeah, it sucked. This level's a great example of how useful playtesting is. This map was always very similar to this, but there was one major kind of design difference, was that the stepping stones at the bottom of the screen had had no wall below them, so they were floating over water, which meant that you could fail about 8 or 9 times here, causing you to get very frustrated and angry. And it wasn't a soft fail where your character fell through and you got back up and carried on. It was a cruel, harsh fail that reset the level, and my playtesters hated it. So this is a great example of the kind of thing that to me was invisible, because I understood how the characters moved and I was making them and playing them all the time. To me, it was a really easy sequence of stepping stones that you can get through first time every time. But once I put it in front of playtesters, I got emails from people saying it was taking them like 45 minutes to get through this level because of that problem. So just sticking a wall underneath, I kept the water because it looked nice, but the sticking a wall underneath really kind of helped and just smoothed people. Danny really, well, I should have mentioned Danny a little bit sooner. He just does so much. It's a long story that I've told lots of places, but basically I wrote the story for him. I was trying to find a voice that would suit the game, and I was a big fan of his writing and his kind of audiobooks and radio stuff and all the things he does. And I wrote the part kind of with his voice in mind. And then I tried to find people who could do it, and no one could do it. And then I got drunk and emailed him, and he said yes, which was a bit of a shock. So I'm really chuffed. He did an awesome job. He's been really cool with the game. He's talked about it. He's been lovely, and he's just a really nice chap. He's also really fast. I'm recording this after recording some other stuff with Danny, and he's amazingly quick at what he does. I'm doing a much worse job, and the people in the booth are getting bored, I imagine, at this point. John's my favourite character. Well, I'm going to say that a few times because I've got quite a few favourite characters, but John I really in particular like. He's insecure in a weird way. I'm not entirely sure why he is, but he is. And that leads him to kind of be dishonest and narcissistic, which I think a large number of creative people will associate with. I know I do. And he's so he's a really interesting character. I like this is another level actually from the original Flash game, which obviously I tweaked and kind of brought across. I really liked the idea of confined spaces as applied to this game, because with large spaces, having multiple characters with different abilities kind of hopefully feels kind of empowering, feels like you can do anything and get anywhere. Putting them into a confined space kind of becomes an interesting kind of jumble. They get in each other's way, they trip over each other. There's a nice. This level exists solely to allow the player to feel their way into John. This is a chance for you to basically make him jump properly for the first time, and hopefully because of the constraints in the last level, that feels awesome. And I actually use the word awesome in the narrations just to push you in case that's not how you're feeling. You should. It's a very good game. And then so you've now got access to this awesome jump, and you can do what you feel.
John decided to press the switch to let the little dots catch up with him. John cared for his new allies. You could tell from the sympathetic expression he'd practiced in the mirror all these years.
This is getting very self-deprecating, but I think this is the weakest level in the game. I came very, very close to cutting it. This is where the staircase repetition kind of becomes, well, boring. I did do a lot. I shifted things around, kind of varied the step sizes and gaps, and to add variety. But it's a lot better than it was. But it was not. It's the one that when I'm watching Let's Plays, and I'll talk a bit more about Let's Plays in a bit. But the way it's kind of the one that I fast forward through on the Let's Plays because I find it very, very slow. I don't know. That might just be over familiarity, but I don't like this level. Have fun with it though, and I'll see you on the next one.
John was happy to keep helping. He felt it was important to his image that he was seen to help the little guys. mind them so much either. The red one, Thomas, had a charming way of applauding every time John jumped. The angry orange one was less immediately likeable, but his unremitting cynicism and tutting amused John.
This is the last. This is actually the last level of the demo. So it's kind of important for that reason. But the kind of the big design lesson here, and you'll notice I guess like the lessons are slowing down at this point. But the big lesson here is that there's a temporary portal success. So previously all the portals have sat on a static ground. So you queue someone up, you queue someone up, you queue someone up. With this one, you have to finish this level by having Thomas falling through that portal. And it's hopefully it's kind of safe. If you miss your timing or you get him through early, you can always catch back up with yourself. So it doesn't punish you if you don't get it immediately. But it's something I really wanted to do later on, and there's quite a few places where I play with this idea. So yeah, it's that basically. It's a way of introducing that, and hopefully kind of hints at the possibilities if you're playing the demo of kind of where the game can continue on from there. Claire is all about the setup. To buy the fact that she actually thinks that swimming is a superpower, you kind of have to set her up before that as feeling weak. And